Hey guys, welcome back to FreckleFace Finance, where we discuss personal finances open and honestly so that you can live the life that you deserve. So I know I've been gone for a while and what's probably more embarrassing is that you guys might not even have noticed, but if you did, it is for good reasons. I recently passed my PMP exam and I'm super excited to finally be finalized in the career field of my choosing. So if you are interested in how I was able to obtain my PMP certification, just keep on watching. So for those that don't know, the PMP, also known as a Project Management Professional Certification, is a globally recognized certification amongst project managers that pretty much shows that you have the knowledge base and skill sets to adequately lead projects. So it's a pretty big deal to get certified in PMP. So one of the pros to getting certified in project management is that a lot of the higher paying jobs require that you have the certification just because they want to standardize the workforce. So if you are interested in project management, it is definitely worth looking into getting professionally certified in PMP. So I'm actually going to give you guys 5 tips that helped me pass my PMP certification. But before I get into that, I kind of want to give you some background information on me just so you can kind of see what study materials might have helped me because of my background as opposed to what may help you specifically with your background. So I recently switched into the project management field. I had experience leading projects but no formal education in project management. And so studying for the project management exam was a big feat for me. So I think if you are already immersed in the project management field for years, I think if you have any contract experience, obviously if you already have project management experience where you're formally leading teams, I also think if you work in a type of setting where you are going through the actual initiating, evaluating, closing out projects. I think if you're already doing that in a formal setting, I think you would have, a better time absorbing the information. So for me, it was literally learning what project management was, learning how to professionally do project management in a very standardized setting, and teaching that to myself in order to pass the exam. So I personally feel like there is absolutely nothing that I can't do. I feel like I am a good learner. I love learning new things. So I was willing to put in the work to not only learn my job, but also learn how to do it in a professional way so that I can pass the certification. So that's my background. And so I just wanted to let you guys know that I was completely starting from scratch. So with that being said, I have watched a ton of videos on YouTube and I see video after video of people that are like, I studied and passed my PMP in 2 weeks. I studied for, 5 days and passed my PMP. Y'all, that was not my experience. Not even close. So actually, I'm probably one of the only people that I've seen on YouTube that would tell you I did not pass my PMP on the first try around. And so I think that this video is going to be very helpful to people. It's a very realistic video on what helped me in studying and what just did not work, because I have both sides of it, right? So I can tell you, hey, these things did not work for me and helped me pass my PMP the first time around, and then this is what I changed the second time around in order to pass. So if that type of information is useful to you, you're in the right place. So first things first, before you can take the exam, there are some prerequisites that you must complete before you can even schedule the exam. So one of which is you have to have some type of formal education, whether that is a 4-year bachelor's degree or a high school degree. So if you have a bachelor's degree, you will need to have 36 months of project management experience. And if you have a high school diploma, you will need to have 60 months of formal project management experience. The project management field is not playing with y'all. So if you are applying for the project management certification, you are gonna have to list out within your application, literally month by month, your project management experience. So if you guys have any questions on that, I am going to film a video on how to complete the application, and that will kind of go into detail on how to identify how much project management experience you have had. So the second prerequisite is that you have to have some type of formal project management education. And so this is actually not a big deal because there are tons and tons of courses that will count for project management education. I personally took, maybe 3 or 4 courses, And honestly, y'all, each course was drastically different from every other course. So I don't think that there is a specific course that will help you more than the others in preparing for the exam. And because I took so many courses, I kind of have a good idea on how the courses are structured. So there's pretty much two categories of courses. So the first category of courses is going to be structured in teaching you project management. I found those courses to be very, very helpful in learning how to do my job and in understanding like the principles and different definitions and stuff that go into my everyday like job experience, like my everyday work environment on my job. The second set of courses I feel like were more geared towards passing the exam. And so they were geared towards these types of questions, this type of format, and these are the type of answers that you should be looking for when preparing to take and sit for the exam. Now, if you could, and I know this may be a big stretch, y'all, but if it is in your means to do so, I would recommend that you take one of each. So you take one that is detailing project management, especially if you don't have prior project management experience like I did. I think it could be very beneficial to take a course in learning the actual principles and the know-how of project management. And then after you take that, I would recommend taking the other set of courses or one from the other set of actually learning how to take the exam. So I think that they are both very useful, and depending on where you are in your project management journey, you may be able to skip the, back to basics, project management foundation type of courses and just go straight to this is how I should prepare for the exam type of courses. So yeah, I think when you are looking for courses, I would recommend that you reach out to them and ask kind of how the course is structured. And also to see if your job would pay for it. So I was fortunate enough to have my employer pay for all of my courses. I think I took, like I said, like 4 courses. I was able to have my employer pay for them. Some of them are instructor led, but there's also some that you can find that are self-paced. So yeah, there's tons and tons of courses. I'll leave one of the courses I took down below. I know a lot of people have recommended them. This particular course was more structured in how to pass the exam and not so much on the foundations of what project management is and specific tools that you would use in your everyday work environment. So the third prerequisite would be actually filling out the application. And so I kind of alluded to this a little bit before. There is going to be, it's not super extensive, but it did take me a while to complete the application. I am gonna make a video on how to complete the application, so you're not gonna get that in this video, but there are tons of videos on YouTube that will detail specifically the application process and how to complete the application. So once you have your project management experience, either 36 months or 60 months, depending on if you have a high school diploma or a college diploma. So you're gonna have to have some type of formal education in project management. So that would be the training or courses, and then you're gonna need to complete the application. Once you do those 3 things, your application is gonna go to a review board, and they're either gonna approve your application or deny. So in all instances, we're gonna say that your application was approved on the first try, and now you're ready to take the exam. Okay, so tip number 1 for passing your PMP is I recommend right out the gate, once your application is approved, you schedule a date to take your exam. And the reason I say that is because y'all know I live in the Washington, D.C. area. It was very difficult for me to schedule an exam, especially if you want a weekend date, you could just forget it. Like the testing dates were booked up 3 months in advance. So I know that like depending on where you live at, the test might not be that popular of an exam. In the area that I live in, you couldn't book an exam within 90 days of wanting to schedule it. So I would recommend right out the gate scheduling your exam, and then you have a date that you are working towards. I personally don't recommend scheduling it 2 weeks out if the exam does let you do that. But there's a lot of people on YouTube that will differ from my experiences. But yeah, I just personally don't think 2 weeks is enough. I would recommend 4 to 5 weeks if you are an experienced project manager. If you are starting from scratch like me, I would recommend the 90 days. I think 90 days is sufficient. You could go over the material that was in the course that you took, and it just allows you to just build on those experiences. Now, if it is 90 days, I don't recommend, studying, going hard for that entire 90 days. I would recommend going hard for 4 to 5 weeks, and then those extra weeks you're kind of, you know, just looking back at the material and just keeping it fresh in your mind. My second tip is to create a structured study plan. So for those of y'all who excelled in college or excelled in high school, or even if you're excelling in your place of employment right now, you need some type of structured plan, some type of structured schedule in order to properly prepare for this exam. So if you've never done anything like that, like accurately made a study plan, I will leave an example of what I recommend down below so that you guys can take a look at it. If you are, you know, a beast at creating schedule plans, mine is gonna be really basic. So go ahead and create your own. I'm sure that there is content on YouTube that will help you create a study plan. But like I said, I'll just leave mine down in the description below so that you guys can take a look at it. Of course, if you're watching this video and you have a great study plan for passing the PMP, make sure you help your fellow colleagues out and maybe leave it down in the comments so that we can take a look at it, so that we can make sure that we're, you know, helping out when we can. My third tip will be to practice sitting for the exam. And so I will definitely say this is what caught me up the first time, and why I don't think that I was successful in passing the exam the first try around is because I did not take into account how hard it is to sit for 3 to 4 hours and concentrate and stare at a computer screen for that long. Like, it was so difficult, y'all. I was exhausted, and quite honestly, I dozed off. Which I'm like even embarrassed to say, but I did doze off during my first exam. And I definitely think it was because it was just so taxing on my eyes and on my brain to sit for that long. Like, I haven't sat for that long since I took the GRE. Like, it was intense. So I would recommend that you practice sitting for the full length practice exams that you take. So I did take practice exams, but what I would do is I would work on a couple of questions, like maybe 30 minutes or so, and then I would pause it. So the practice exams that I took, you had the option to pause. So if I had to run to the bathroom, if I needed to make me some lunch really quickly, or if, you know, my phone rang, I would take breaks while taking the practice exam and then just pick back up where I left off at. And so I thought that I was practicing, you know, using the exam questions to practice, but I really wasn't practicing the other part of it, which was actually sitting for that long. And so that's where I think that I kind of messed up and why I was unsuccessful my first attempt. But I definitely saw that and made those improvements and actually sat for the hours it took to do the actual practice exam the second time around. And I think that it made a big difference. So my fourth tip would be to invest in good study materials. Y'all, I say this, there are tons and tons and tons of information and study materials. And unfortunately, because there are so many, you don't know what's good study materials and what's not good study materials. And so, of course, like going into my first time around, this is what I studied, y'all. I just took like the straight PMBOK and just read it. I do not recommend that strategy, y'all. Like, just reading this book and taking notes. Like, I'm very old school, so I still write out my notes, or at least I did the first time around. No, don't recommend, do not recommend. And I think that I did this strategy because I was new to the career field and I didn't have a lot of experience in what a lot of these terms were that were in the book. And so I found myself like every chapter was like, oh, that's a new concept to me. Oh, that's something new. And I thought it was useful, but it really wasn't. When I was actually taking the exam, it wasn't. So I recommend investing in some good study materials. A lot of the courses that I took with the education classes, they did have like a lot of resources that you can look out to. And to be honest, y'all, they all were drastically different. It was so much information, and not knowing specifically what to pull from the study just made you just study everything, right? Like, there's tons and tons of information. So ultimately what I did the second time around, what someone recommended to me, was to stop being cheap and purchase the study, it was like the study exam prep or something like that, through PMP or through the PMI organization. And I would say that that made a huge difference, y'all. That made a huge difference in me being able to properly prepare. because you're getting the source from the actual source. Like, you're getting the information from the actual people who are putting on the exam. And I would say that, like, the practice exams through the PMI study hall, top notch. Like, they were so useful, so helpful. And I found that the way that the exam was structured in the practice exams from PMI study hall were pretty much spot on for the actual exam. So there's no guessing. It was like spot on. Like, the difficulty in the questions, the format of the questions, the type of multiple choice answers to choose from, very spot on to the actual exam. So I will say this, the PMI study hall, I believe it is $80. I looked for coupons after coupons after coupons, could not find anything. So if you guys have a coupon for the PMI study hall, please make sure to leave it down in the comments below. I'm sure your fellow colleagues will truly appreciate it, because $80 can kind of be a big ticket item for people, like for a lot of people, especially in this economy. So unfortunately, I was unable to find a coupon code for it, but it was worth every penny of the $80 that I spent on it. Now, this PMI study hall, it's a subscription. It only lasts, I believe, 90 days. It was definitely worth every penny, and I would highly recommend that you guys look into purchasing that study hall subscription. Now, if your budget just does not allow for the $80 subscription, I did find a YouTube page that I felt like was very useful. And so it was very helpful to listen to these PMI prep questions and then watch this YouTuber go through the answers as if he was taking the exam. So he specifically went through his decision-making process and why certain answers weren't the correct answer and why he ultimately picked the answer that he picked. I felt like it was a very close second. So whether you are a learner who likes to read and answer questions yourself, or if you like to go through the exam with this particular YouTuber, y'all can't remember his name, but I'm definitely gonna put it on the screen and I'll put it in the description down below because it was so useful. I would recommend it, and I would rate it a 10 out of 10. Very useful, especially like if you're not like sitting down. So like you could be, I was obsessed with passing the second time. So you could be cleaning and listening to his explanations and his questions. You could be driving and listening to it and just treat it like a podcast. Like, it was very useful. And so I would highly recommend it. Also too, one of the things, if you are gonna go the route, you could do both, I did both, but if you are gonna go the route to look at his YouTube videos and see like the practice test questions, what I would do is that when he would read the question, I would pause the video and then I would try to see if I could come up with what I would pick as the correct answer. And at this particular point, I wasn't timing myself, right? So there's gonna be portions of your study plan where you're gonna have unlimited time to answer the questions, see if you can come up with the questions, with the correct answer. And then as you get closer to your actual exam date, you're gonna start timing yourself and just sitting for the actual practice test with it being timed. So I would recommend pausing the test when you're doing it on YouTube, seeing if you can come up with the correct answer, and then seeing if you can understand why he selected the answer that he did and why the other answers were incorrect. So I would recommend that strategy. 10 out of 10, really liked it. Okay guys, so last but not least, my 5th tip for being able to pass your PMP exam is progressively building on your practice exams. And so I know that I touched on practice exams through other couple of tips that I listed, but progressively building on your practice exams, I think is like top tier. And I don't want to say like you have to do it because everybody learns completely differently, but I think it played a huge part in me being able to pass my exam the second try. And so what I mean by progressively building on your practice exams is your first day of, like, within that 4 to 5 week window, the first day I recommend taking the practice exam and then following up to study everything you got wrong. And then the last day on the next week, I recommend taking another practice exam and then studying all of those wrong answers. And so ideally what this looks like is that each week your percentage of correct answers should be going up and your percentage of incorrect answers should be going down. And so at the end of the practice test, the next week you should be studying all the incorrect answers. So figuring out why you missed those answers and then studying those principles within your study material. And so each week the incorrect answers should be going down And so you should be building off of that progressively. And so that's what I mean by that. And then also too, just so you can have like, you know, a little percentage that you're working towards, is that it was recommended to me that you should be scoring 80% on your practice exams, and that will signify that you are ready to take the exam. Now, I will say this. I think it was the night before, because like y'all, I was studying. The night before or the day before, I took a practice exam and I scored a 77%. So that wasn't the complete 80 that I needed to in order to, you know, feel completely confident in taking the exam, but I passed. So I would say anywhere between 77 to 80% on your practice exams, and that will signify to you that you are ready to take the exam. So you don't have to shoot for 100%. Have you ever heard the saying that B's get degrees? Well, B's also get certifications too. So yeah, so you don't have to shoot for 100%. Don't freak out if you're not getting 100% on the practice exams. If you are, that is great, but you can still get your certification without getting 100%. So yeah, so just wanted to put that out there as well. Alright guys, so that sums up my 5 tips in order to better help you prepare to pass the PMP certification. I don't guarantee that you'll pass it on your first try, but hopefully with my tips you are able to better prepare than I was my first time around. And hopefully it is helpful to you. And just a little bonus tip for you guys, do not let analysis paralysis stop you from being great. I don't know if y'all ever heard of that before, but it's pretty much when you overthink something to the point that you just don't do. You just think and don't do. So don't let analysis paralysis stop you from being great, y'all. So I know that some people will just overthink, and they just never put it together. So if you are thinking about studying and taking the PMP, just do it, y'all. Like if you don't pass it on your first try, nothing drastic is gonna happen. Nobody is gonna know unless you tell them. Like it is a-okay. Like you can still be successful. You can still compete for high paying jobs. You can still have a successful career if you don't pass on the first try. So, you know, don't let that discourage you. Just, you know, study and take it again. So I think that wraps it up for today's video. I hope that this was very helpful. I hope my 5 tips help you guys, you know, have a successful test prep and that you're able to pass the exam. Can't guarantee that you'll pass it on your first try, but hopefully this video was useful to you. If it was, make sure to leave me a comment down below. If you have any other tips for your fellow colleagues, make sure to leave those down in the comments below. And of course, if you watched this video, you studied and then you took your exam, I also would like to hear some great news as well. If you guys are interested, I will list my actual study notes on Etsy. I'm only gonna list them for $1 because like I feel like all information should be readily available to the people who need it. If you feel like that $1 price tag is just too high, don't worry y'all, just send me an email, I got you. Because I just really feel like everybody should have access to this type of information because it's just gonna prepare your career if you do go ahead and get certified. I want everybody that's interested to get certified. So yeah, don't let it discourage you. Shoot me an email if you know the $1 is unattainable for you. As always, I really enjoy making these videos. At the very least, please leave me a thumbs up so it can be pushed out to a larger audience. So I'm gonna try to set out, hopefully this time next week, you guys will see a video from me on how to actually fill out the application because you can't do nothing until you fill out the application. So I'm gonna try to work on making a video for you guys for that. As always, thank you so much and I'll see you in my next one. Thanks.